And it is wonderful to have everyone here with us this morning. I see we've got 53 people in the door so far. We have lots of members of our ANJAC team with us here this morning. And for those of you who have been here before, this is our spring training. Think, baseball, think beginning of the year, getting ready for doing great things. We are very pleased to have everyone here safely and virtually. We were able to hold one session last year in person early in March, and then the world changed on us, and we have been virtual ever since. So I am going to share my screen now. And let's see here, give you a little introduction to ANJAC for those of you who may not know us. Okay, can everybody see that? One of the ANJAC people, can you give me it? Great, I got a thumbs up. Thank you, Jen Lynn. Or Jenny Lynn, sorry about that. Thanks for the thumbs up. So again, my name is Jennifer Coffey, and I am here to welcome you and thank you all for continuing to do the work that you do. Environmental commissions have really stepped up this year. You've reorganized, you've adapted, you've improvised. And I also want to start off with a big, hearty, from the bottom of my soul, thanks to ANJAC staff and board members. Without your leadership, dedication, flexibility, tenacity, we would not have had such a successful year as we've had for New Jersey's environment, for our water, our air, the people who depend on it. And I feel particularly blessed and graced to work with the staff that we have and all of the environmental commissioners, each of you out there. I want you all to know that you are part of a larger team. There are thousands of you, and I know sometimes it can feel a little lonely if you are 3, 5, 7 people on a Zoom at night trying to figure out what to do for your community, but you are part of a greater movement. We here at ANJAC have been around for 52 years now, supporting you and being your resource for protecting the environment on the local level. We have 2 signature programs. This was last year, our very last in-person session. So thank you for BYO Bagel and Coffee today, because that's how we're doing it. We'll make it up to you when we can be in person again. We have 2 signature programs for those of you who don't know. We have our fundamentals for effective environmental commissions, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the structure of this year's program. So rather than having everybody in a room for 5.5, 6 hours straight, we've broken it up into multiple sessions because we know what it's like to be on Zoom for 5 or 6 hours. It's not a pleasant experience. Our other signature program is our Environmental Congress. And so this year we will have our 48th annual Environmental Congress in October. And we have made the decision that this year's Congress will be offered virtually as well. And so we will be very pleased to look at the evaluations you provided us from last year's virtual Congress, which was held throughout the month of October, and make that even a better experience for you this year. But we want everyone to be safe, and because we need to start planning and we don't know where the world will be in the fall. Hopefully everybody will be vaccinated and safe, and we'll just have the luxury of commuting virtually rather than the necessity. At ANJAC, we also do a decent amount of work. These photos are all pre-pandemic, so don't worry, anywhere we go, we are masked up and distanced. We do a lot of work in Trenton, both on the east and west side sections of State Street, so in the State House and also at the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection. But all of the work that we do in Trenton is linked to the work that you do locally. So in less than 2 years, between 2018 and 2019, many of you know this, you passed more than 120 local ordinances to end plastic pollution. And because of that massive work that you did on the local level, you could not be ignored in Trenton. And we simply carried your story of your local action to the halls of the State House. And that's why New Jersey now has the strongest plastic pollution reduction act in the country. So we are also a conduit. We're your resource, but we're also a conduit between the work that you're doing locally and the policies that the state enacts at the legislative and regulatory level. Environmental commissions are doing fantastic work out in their communities. You are continuing to testify at meetings. You are continuing to work on green infrastructure. And we're here to support you in your goals for your community. So communicate with us, let us know how we can help. ANJAC also has a open space program, a small grants program. And maybe we've got Liz Ritter, our deputy director. She could post the deadlines in the chat or get to that later in the program, because that small grants program is opening up soon to do work in your communities. We've been very flexible with the deadline. So if you still have a grant from 2019 or 2020 that you haven't finished, just communicate with us. We understand there are multiple pandemics, racial pandemic, economic pandemic, obviously the COVID pandemic. So we want to be a partner in you being successful in building rain gardens, in putting in community gardens, et cetera, et cetera. And the work that we do at ANJAC is really focused on looking at the world through two lenses these days. One is climate change. Climate change is, it is systemic, and we need to, as a state, as the state that is being most impacted by climate change at the moment, we need to look at becoming more resilient and mitigating for the effects of climate change that we simply cannot stop at this point in time. The additional flooding, the additional heat that we're going to experience, the changes in habitats, the longer periods of dryness that couple the flooding. And we also need to do absolutely everything we can to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that means more electric vehicles. It means greening up our electric grid. And that way, by doing everything we can to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we can work to keep the problems of climate change from getting exponentially worse. We are also looking at environmental issues in New Jersey through the lens of diversity, equity, justice, and inclusion. And as you probably know, New Jersey has recently passed an environmental justice legislation, and this designates certain neighborhoods as overburdened communities. So communities who are suffering from an overburden of pollution. And those communities tend to be low income, English as second language speaking, and minority communities. So this is a map that we will be unveiling in our next quarterly magazine, the ANJAC Report. And this shows the darker green and the darker purple colors are the overburdened communities. And they are overlaid with the communities that have environmental commissions. So both the green and purple are municipalities that have environmental commissions. Green are ANJAC members, purple have not yet renewed their membership in ANJAC. And so you will see that you are part of a very large team of volunteers working throughout the state to protect your environment on the local level. And with that, I just want to thank you for working the problem, continuing to do what needs to be done in your community. You'll see all of our masked up volunteers here, environmental commissions who partnered in food drives in the last 12 months, environmental commissioners who are still working to install green infrastructure, to improve water quality, to be on Team Butterfly, Team Bee, to help our pollinators. And so we could not be happier to do everything that we can to support you and to be a resource for you. Just a note, if you see any of these coalitions, there's lots of people who care about the environment are doing good work for the Delaware, in the Pines, in the Highlands, in Newark, and Patterson. ANJAC is part of all of these coalitions. So we work at the larger scale with nonprofits throughout the state as well, so that we can keep you plugged into the best available science and policy that's happening. So with that, I'm going to wrap up and thank everybody for being here this morning and turn it over to our able staff to continue with this morning's programming.
Thank you, Jen. Round of applause for our wonderful executive director. We are all very lucky to work for her. Great, and with that, we're just gonna jump right in. So let me start sharing my screen now.
And Alex, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I figured I'd keep people guessing. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Hopefully you are in the correct place. This is Fundamentals for Effective Environmental Commissioners. And this is our 2021 virtual training. This is workshop 1 of 4, EC powers and responsibilities. And as Jen said, what you see in the background here is an old photo. This was taken, I believe, 2 years ago. And it seems impossible now. All right, so just some quick housekeeping before we begin. This session will be recorded. I know that's almost always a question for people. This session will be recorded and will be available afterwards to all registrants, so even folks who were not able to make it today. Next Tuesday's training is the same topic. So if you are here today, you do not need to go to Tuesday's training. It is the same topic. It will be covering the same stuff. You will probably be even more bored than you would be on a Saturday morning. So no need to attend it if you don't want to. Please put your questions and answers into the chat function. On the bottom, if you roll over, you should see something that looks like a little box with an arrow coming out of it. That's the chat. Please feel free to put them in as we're presenting. We will get to all of the questions at the end. And if we do not get to your question, feel free to email us. We will give you that email address at the end as well. I am drinking Lady Lavender tea. It's Earl Grey, but with lavender. I just thought everyone would be curious. All right, so to start off, we have a poll question. Liz, if you wouldn't mind launching that poll question, it is, how long have you served on your environmental commission or committee? So they are never, which does not appear to be showing up, but that's okay. 0 to 1 years, 1 to 3 years, 3 to 6 years, or 6+ years. And let's see the answers rolling in. We're just going to give it a couple more seconds for folks. I'm assuming people who are not voting have never served, so we'll call that that. All right, so looks like we got most people voting. Liz, if you wouldn't mind ending that and publishing those answers. It looks like we have a bunch of newbies, which is very exciting. I guess now is a good time for me to introduce myself. Thank you, Liz. You can stop sharing that. We have the majority of people serving 0 to 1 years on the Environmental Commission, which is the same as me. So my name is Alex Ambrose. I am the Policy Associate at ANJAC. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And let me just share those results so everyone can see them. I am also an Environmental Commission member. I'm a new member. I was formerly on a different Environmental Commission, just started this year on the Clinton Township Environmental Commission. So I am also fairly new on my commission. And that's great, thank you, that's good information. All right, so we're gonna start with the very basics. What the law requires that establishes an environmental commission. The enabling legislation, if you're a policy nerd like me, you're more than welcome to go and find it. However, we will also distill it for you. It says there are 5 to 7 members and 2 alternates appointed by the mayor. Sometimes it's the whole governing body, not the mayor, and one of whom shall be a member of the planning board. So that member is both a member of the planning board and a member of the environmental commission. They are a full voting member. The alternate members do not vote unless someone is absent, and they are allowed to vote by the chair. So the Environmental Commission, unlike a lot of the other governing bodies in a municipality, cannot make decisions on behalf of the municipality, but they do serve an important advisory role. So environmental commissions review site plans. As you can see here, they review applications, they give recommendations to said governing bodies, but they do serve in an advisory role. And they all serve at the pleasure of the mayor or the governing body that appoints them. There are different formats for environmental commissions. So what we just talked about is pretty much all that the law says that an environmental commission has to be. 5 to 7 members, 2 alternates appointed by the mayor. So there's a lot of freedom in that the Environmental Commission has in making it their own. So Cranford Environmental Commission has associate members. So these are not voting members, but they are important advisors in the meetings. And Wyckoff has junior commissioners, which is incredibly exciting. These are, as you can see, usually high school students. If you're interested, usually the high school environmental club is a good place to start to get some junior members. Once again, these are not voting, but very exciting to have people of all ages joining that environmental commission. So what the law requires, rolling 3-year terms. So the rolling is so that you don't lose all 7 of your environmental commissioners at once. Rolling means that only a few people are shifted off of the environmental commission at once. An important one, but environmental commissions are subject to the Open Public Meetings Act, also known as OPMA. It's also known as the Sunshine Law because sunshine is the best disinfectant. So the more you make public, the better. We will get into the Open Public Meetings Act a little bit more, but what's important, and this will, we will have a link in the resources that get sent out afterwards, or if one of ANJAC staff members has it handy, they can put it in the chat. It has been a little bit harder to comply with OPMA amidst the pandemic because it used to be that you had to meet in a public space and you had to make that space open to the public. And obviously we don't want to do that anymore. So there are a couple pieces of legislation at the state level that allow the meeting of a technological public space. It's still important that you comply with OPMA. So you still need to allow the public to join your meetings virtually. You still need to allow public comment. You still need to advertise those meetings. And there are lots of guidances out there, including stuff that ANJAC has put out. If you look on our website and our YouTube page, I believe we did a webinar on ways that ECs can meet virtually. So this is important. Another important note is that anytime a quorum of EC members, so if you have 5 people, that is 4, or I'm sorry, if you have 7 people, that is 4 members. If you have 5 people, that is 3 members. Anytime 3 members or 4 members get together, that constitutes a public meeting. So whether it is a group chat, whether it is an email thread, whether it is you all getting together for coffee, that constitutes an open public meeting. So you need to make sure that you are not reaching a quorum. What a lot of ECs do is they create subcommittees to work on specific projects. So if you have 7 people, you can have a subcommittee of 3 people that can meet to work on a project. But as soon as you get a 4th person there, that is a public meeting. And every time you do that, you are closer to violating OPMA, and you don't want to get into that legal trouble. The law also requires an environmental commission to create an annual report, which we will talk about in a little bit what that is. Essentially, you are just telling the governing body what you are working on. It's a great chance to show off what you have been doing. It's a great chance to show off what are your goals for the next year. And finally, the law requires environmental commissions to keep an index of open lands, also known as public lands, green spaces. We'll get into that a little bit as well. All right, so beyond what it requires, here are some powers that the commission has to study and make recommendations on water, air, wastewater, noise, landscape protection, environmental appearance, flora and fauna, basically all natural resources. Create the open space index, like I said. So the open space index can be part of an ERI or NRI, which you can see as the next bullet. That stands for Environmental Resource Inventory and Natural Resource Inventory. They are the same thing. You can use either acronym. Those are interchangeable. The open space index, like I said, it's just an index of the public and open lands. It's a great way, if you have that index, it is great to keep because you can give recommendations on where to place things, where not to place things. And an environmental resource inventory, ERI, goes even further because it has an inventory of all natural resources. So that includes geology, flora and fauna, what kind of hydrology, what kind of water flow do you have, et cetera, et cetera. So frankly, these, if you have never had an ERI or NRI before, they can be pretty expensive. Fortunately, to update it, which is what most people will end up having to do, they need to be updated every 10 years. And it's not a bad idea to update them sooner than that if something big happens. To update those, like I said, you do need to hire an outside consultant to do that. If you are, if it's a bigger project, sometimes smaller projects don't require a consultant. However, if you are in the Highlands region, which is a region near and dear to my heart, not only because I work there, but because I live here in Clinton Township in Hunterdon County, the Highlands Council is producing a digital environmental resource inventory for every single municipality in the Highlands region. Whether or not you comply, you are in compliance with the Highlands Regional Master Plan or not, this digital ERI will contain and can replace every municipality's environmental resource inventory. This will be amazing because, like I said, they can be very expensive. And it's just easier to have a digital ERI that you can go in, look at a map and figure out how the entire region works together, not just your municipality. I believe they are going to release this to beta test mid-year, but with the pandemic, it could be a little bit delayed. So we'll see. We will keep you updated on that. Like I said, the environmental resource inventory, forgot I had a slide just for that. All of this I talked about. This photo here is Moorestown, who completed a new environmental resource inventory in 2013. It can be something as beautiful as this cover. It can be something as simple as a map on a website that you have. All right, another pop quiz. So this one we have not gone over yet. So this is a true pop quiz. Liz, if you don't mind throwing that poll up. Which of these requires an ordinance to be established? An environmental commission, a committee, a green team, both A and B, or all three? You will be graded on this and you will be kicked out if you do not get this answer correctly, so be careful. I'm joking. Ooh, we got some hesitators here. We only got about 80% voting now. All right. And we'll give it one more second. Okay, Liz, if you don't mind ending and sharing those results. The majority of you got it correct, yes. Only an environmental commission requires an ordinance to be established. So that is great. 45% of you said environmental commission. A few of you did try to go the SAT route and say that all three did, which is what I would do also if I did not know the correct answer. That is always a good trick. Great, thank you. And we'll get into that now. So what is the difference? An environmental commission versus an environmental committee versus a green team. Environmental commission, as we just found out, can only be established by ordinance. This is great because ordinance needs to go through the regular legislative process at the municipal level. So it needs a first reading, it needs a second reading, it needs public record, public needs to be allowed to speak on it, it needs a vote. This is great because the mayor or the governing body can't one day just decide to end it. A committee, on the other hand, while sometimes they can be established by ordinance, they are normally ad hoc, which means kind of at the mayor's discretion or governing body's discretion, to be formed, not necessarily permanently, sometimes temporarily, but again, sometimes they find them so useful they keep them around. And then a green team is normally established by resolution. And once again, they usually serve a very more specific purpose where they're not necessarily doing everything an environmental commission does. The green team sometimes does more outreach. Once again, this is kind of all at your discretion. What fits best for your municipality, what your mayor and governing body best. Oh, looks like we have someone who did not mute. Okay, great. So those are the difference between those three. I also just want to point out that you can always find out more about these in the Environmental Commissioner's Handbook, which I believe if you do not already have a digital version, we will be sending out a digital version to all attendees. That also goes over all of this information as well. All right, so getting organized. So these are a list of things that you should probably do if you are a new environmental commission or if you're at your first meeting of the year, which you might have already had. Mission statement, bylaws, annual goals, annual report, and budget. And we're going to get into each of these. Figure out what your mission statement is for your environmental commission. And even if you've had one for an environmental commission for a while and you don't have a mission statement, now may be the time to do it. Mission statement is something very simple that just talks about why do you do what you do? Why are you here? Why do we have an environmental commission at all? So this is an example of Summit. So I'm sure many of you have heard of Summit. If you have not, Summit is a very suburban kind of city-esque. There's a lot of downtown. There's a train station there that goes right into the city. So this is their EC talks about leadership, vision, and sustainability versus something like, I can never say this right, and I should have asked someone how to pronounce it, Mantalocking. I hope the staff will come in and tell me if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. Because they are closer to the shore, they are talking about the land, bay, and ocean, and the health of surrounding waters. So each of these mission statements, obviously if Summit was talking about the shore, they would probably say, our environmental commission is crazy, we probably shouldn't have one anymore. So that's why it's important to personalize it to what is important to your municipality. So bylaws, the establishing state legislation for an environmental commission and your ordinance do not include bylaws. So while there are requirements for membership and stuff in that, there are no bylaws. So the chair and the EC itself get to set their own bylaws. And this is kind of all internal. How do you operate? Do you have attendance requirements? So some people have requirements where, you know, if you have more than 2 unexcused absences, we won't consider you on the commission anymore. Meeting requirements and cancellation policy, subcommittees. So those are the subcommittees that I talked about. So sometimes 2 or 3 people will work on climate change. 2 or 3 people will work on plastics outreach. Those are all things that you can add into your bylaws to make them official. And advisory member appointments. So like I said, those associate members or those junior members, having those in your bylaws is a great way to formalize them. Preparation and distribution of meeting minutes. This is a good one and one that I think is probably the least fun. You decide who is taking your minutes. So do you have a clerk that comes in or will you switch it off to members? And any other record keeping. So notes, archives, stuff like that, all of that can be in your bylaws. Here's some sample bylaws. I won't go through all of these, but this also talks about, because Jersey City has such a high population, they limit public participation to 5 minutes per person unless otherwise stated by the chairman. Having something like this is a great idea because you don't want the public to hijack your meeting and speak for 20 minutes about something that you may not have power over. So while you do need to allow the public to participate, you can limit, you cannot limit to less than 3 minutes, but you can set a limit to either 3 minutes or something more than that. And again, that's just good governance, in my opinion. Some more sample bylaws. So this is from Hamilton Township. They have a bylaw about associate members. Once again, they can, it's talking about who appoints them, how long they serve, and the fact that they will not be able to vote. And they also have some attendance requirements. So if you are completely lost and need help with bylaws, please reach out to us and we can do some research. You can reach out to another EC in your area. Most of them are very helpful in providing these for you if you'd like. All right, you're setting your goals for the year. So once again, this is something good to do at the beginning of the year. If you haven't had your first meeting yet, go ahead and do this at this meeting. What do you plan to accomplish for the year? It is very easy to kind of get lost in the weeds, and every meeting just talk about what comes up. So setting goals at the beginning of the year, what would you like to do? Now, what we're going to do now is we are actually going to do a quick breakout session. So we're going to spend about 15 minutes in this breakout session. Before I talk about technologically how this is going to work, I'm just going to talk about what you're going to do in the breakout session. So we're going to break out into 4 different breakout sessions. You will have at least one ANJAC staff member in each of these sessions. You will introduce yourself, give your name and your association, whether that's municipality, a nonprofit, anything like that, and then talk about what is your #1 goal for this year, for 2021. What is your EC's #1 goal? And talk a little bit about it. So everyone should plan to spend about a minute talking. If you go over a little bit, that is fine, but these breakout sessions will be limited to about 15 minutes. Then we're going to come back and we're going to keep talking. I have a lot more to go over, so I want to make sure that we have time to get to it and questions. So how this is going to work, in a second, our wonderful Deputy Director Liz is going to start breakout sessions. Now either, let me stop sharing so that I can have the same screen as you all. Either you will get a pop-up that says enter this breakout room and you click enter, or on the bottom, there should be something that says breakout rooms on your Zoom screen that has 4 boxes in one big box. If you click that, that might also bring up the pop-up. So like I said, we're gonna get into these rooms. We're gonna spend about 15 minutes talking about introduce yourself and what is your goal for 2021. If you are having issues, please chat one of the ANJAC members. Otherwise, Liz, can you press the magic button that will take us away? And you're going to click join, that blue button that just popped up.
Hello?
Hello, are the group sessions not working? Oh, it looks like we have somebody who has shared their screen. I am going to ask one of the ANJAC staff who is an admin to go ahead and end Ed Kelly's screen sharing. We are working on breaking people out into rooms. Seems we have ANJAC staff in rooms, but not yet the participants. We did practice this. Okay, give us a minute, folks. Okay, it looks like the assignments are happening, so you will be whisked away in a minute.
hours. So I'm very happy. And I hope someone in my group, I think it was Rachel, said that they love doing things like this because they get to steal ideas from everyone. And Rachel hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what we want you all to do. I said, Anjak has probably never had an original idea. We have stolen from mostly you.
Share. We share ideas.
Yeah, there we go. We have borrowed and given credit to a lot of UECs. And, you know, Rachel brought up the Anjak report and the Anjak news, hearing all the projects that other ECs are doing. That's how their ECs have thought of a lot of great ideas. So you've hit the nail on the head. I encourage you all to use the chat. If someone said something interesting, you should, I think we all have the ability, yes, we can, you can message someone, get their contact information to talk more about their project, because I think it's really exciting.
Could I take 1 second to say one thing before you move on?
Absolutely.
I found out that Lisa Sandhusen from New Milford, it's her birthday today. So I just wanted to say happy birthday and thanks for sharing it with us.
Happy birthday. I think we are meant to always have a birthday during a commissioner's course, because mine was last year on March 7th, and it was literally the last thing we did before the world shut down. So it is always good to have something good to celebrate. So happy birthday to you. That is wonderful.
Yes, happy birthday. And let's add birthday cake to every meeting once we can be back together, and we'll just celebrate everybody's birthday together. Cake for,
I mean, statistically, it's someone's birthday, Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks for continuing on, Alex. I'm gonna go back into stealth mode in the background here.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, now because we are running a little bit short on time, I may run through this a little fast. Once again, please put your questions in the chat. I will try to leave some time at the end to answer them. I will leave some time at the end to answer them. And once again, if we do not get to your question, please feel free to email us. We will put our email at the end. All right, so we were talking about goals, and we had a great conversation. So this is from Cranberry Township in Central Jersey, which is a thing, whether or not you believe it is. They have a very extensive, this actually goes on for several more pages. They have a very extensive goals document. So they have their goal to re-examine their municipal master plan, redo the environmental resource inventory, do household environmental activities, educational activities. Excuse me, they really went on for quite a few pages talking about what they would like to do. However, sometimes you keep it simple. So these are Woodbridge's Environmental Commission goals. Very simple. They kept it pretty generic because it's nice to have that flexibility sometimes of being able to work on whatever comes up. And it's, once again, it depends on what works best for your environmental commission and your municipality. All right, so one more quick poll question that we are going to go over afterwards. Liz, if you don't mind launching that. Who should an EC, Environmental Commission, reach out to build relationships and trust? General public, governing body, clubs and civic organizations, schools, businesses, or all of the above? Ah, there's my water. Ooh, okay. Voting is getting pretty competitive. This one seemed to be a lot easier than the last one. All right, Liz, if you don't mind ending and sharing that poll. Wonderful. You guys got a great, you all get A's. The answer is yes, all of the above. Thank you, Liz. All right, so next we are going to talk about how to win friends and influence your elected officials by Anjak. We have come up with this totally original concept. Please ignore any Photoshop errors that you see here. So we get questions a lot. about what if my council is not listening to me, or what if my council is not friendly to environmental priorities. Well, we do not have the answers, but we have some tips for you. Actually, someone in my breakout room is from Berkeley Heights, which is my hometown. I lived there for 25 years. So this photo should look a little bit familiar. And I will get to what this photo is in a second. So one great way to become an influential environmental commission is to give electeds easy wins. So give your mayor and council easy wins. Win a small grant project for the town. Hold a movie night that you allow them to come to and speak for a few minutes in the beginning to their constituents. Give them something easy that they can check off their list and say, great, our town did this year. Attend council and committee meetings. I thought this was a given that every environmental commissioner knew to do this, but apparently it is not. So I always add this in. Attending those meetings, even if you can't attend all of them, trying to attend most of them or make sure at least one of your members is there is a great way to learn about what is happening in the town, and also just to show your face to those elected officials. Let them know that you're paying attention and that you won't let anything slip through the cracks. Be willing to listen and learn. So, admitting humility is a great way to have your elected officials teach you something that you did not know, and listen to their concerns and listen to what they consider their priorities. You'd be surprised at what you can learn just by sitting and listening. And finally, something called thanks and spanks. So this is a humorous term that is famous in political organizing, and it refers to holding your elected officials accountable. So we often ask our elected officials for a lot, which is what we should be doing. That is what they are there for. They are there to represent our wants and needs. However, we are not very good at closing that loop and making sure that we follow back afterwards. If they do something that you asked for, say thank you. And just a very quick email, a very quick thank you at the end of during public comment during a meeting. That thank you can go a long way. And once again, it shows them that you're paying attention. Or if they do not do it, if they said they would do something and they didn't, or if you feel like they did not listen to you and they did not hold your priorities accountable, let them know that you are unhappy with that. And try to garner support in the community around that. There are ways to be respectful without being a doormat. So you can still be respectful and let them know that you are unhappy without sacrificing what you want your priorities to be. On the right, you will see Berkeley Heights Mayor Devaney and Councilman Yellen help cut the ribbon on their new community garden. And on the left is the chair of the Environmental Commission. So once again, the Environmental Commission chair invited them there. Angie Devaney actually ran there because she once again was promoting environmental priorities and decided not to drive there. So they got a bunch of elected officials to have this wonderful photo op. Elected officials love photo ops. I promise I know that. Some more tips: offer solutions, not just opposition. So you do not want to be the EC member that is known for only complaining and not offering any solutions. So we talked a lot about in our breakout group, Sustainable Jersey has a lot of discrete goals and achievable goals that do open up funding. ANJAC has a small grants program for municipal stewardship. There are a lot of solutions that you can offer. So if there is a problem with flooding, don't just go up and complain about flooding. Offer solutions. Show them the green infrastructure projects. Show them ANJAC's enhanced model stormwater ordinance. There are always solutions. Build a base of support in the community. Like I said, building that support in the community, whether it's to make sure that they are showing up to meetings to voice their opinions. Just if you can turn away from the council and turn towards the community to show up to an event, excuse me, to show that there is support for the EC. And similarly, working on projects that are of interest to the governing body. So if the governing body once again says, we have this problem with flooding, but we don't know what to do about it, see if you can get a green infrastructure project. Once again, that shows that you are paying attention and you are helping them share with shared goals. Finally, don't take it personally. There are so many competing priorities that an elected official has to has to try to achieve between budgets, elections, taxes are a huge thing in New Jersey. This doesn't mean that you should stop advocating. This just means you should know it is not a personal failure if something that you wanted does not happen. It's important to create trust. So once again, this goes back to gaining that support in the community. So seek alliance, find common ground and shared needs, be open to new ideas. Like I said, listening is a great way to come up with those new ideas. Pool resources. So if there is also a regional environmental commission that you have, so, say you're in Maplewood, you can join Essex County Environmental Commission in doing something. Share credit liberally. So once again, giving those elected officials, letting them share the credit in achieving something, and make sure to demonstrate value. So on the left is an example of a project. I can't remember exactly where it's from, but a whole bunch of groups came together to create this kind of outdoor lounging area. And it was a great example of those. It was a couple of non-traditional partners. So it was a great way of seeking alliances. You can look for businesses in your area to work with. Being open to new ideas. They probably did not think of to do an outdoor lounging area. And it's a shared goal. It gets people out into the community, and is just a great way to gather the community together. And finally, be an informed citizen. So this is my fictional political hero, C.J. Craig. Decisions are made by those who show up. So like I said, attending those council meetings, making yourself known to the planning board. If you are not on your environmental commission, making yourself known to them, the council or committee. Know your rights. This is a big one also. Make sure that you are familiar with OPMA, which is the Open Public Meetings Act, and OPRA, the Open Public Records Act. Those are ways that you can get information if your council or committee is not complying with you. And finally, reach out to resources. So I may be a bit biased, but I think ANJAC is a great resource, but we are not the only resource. So find out who your local watershed group is. Find out who your regional ECs are. We are great, but we are not the only resource that is available. And once again, there are 12 of us and 565 municipalities in New Jersey. So we cannot possibly help everyone that we would like to. So once again, sharing those resources. Next, your annual report. What should it include? So this is, I'm going to go very quickly over this because I know we're coming up on time. What should it include? So it should include a roster of members, meeting dates for the year, list of activities and accomplishments, and goals for the coming year. Very simple, but you can once again make it as complicated, as comprehensive, or as simple as you would like. As I said before, the annual report is a great way to brag about yourself and brag about your environmental commission. Talk about what you have done and what you plan to do. Demonstrate your own value in your annual report. I think, yes, okay. I did have a slide with an annual report, but I decided to take it out because it looked very boring. It was just a list of things. So these are just the big headlines that should be included on your environmental report. But once again, you can make subheadings, you can make this as comprehensive as you would like. And if you would like examples of annual reports, please feel free to reach out to us or to some of your neighboring environmental commissions, and we will be happy to share. Your budget. So this is when having a good relationship with your elected officials comes in handy. You should know when your budget cycle for your municipality is. Usually it is 1 calendar year, sometimes it is not. You should know when the budget meetings are, when they are voting on the budget. Once again, showing up to meetings and having a good relationship is a great way to have the upper hand in the budget. These are some things that should be included in your budget. Oh, that's weird. ANJAC dues is the first one. That's weird. I wonder how that got there. But having ANJAC dues is a great way. Obviously, you get access to trainings such as these. You get access to a lot of our resources that you would not otherwise if you did not have those dues. So hopefully you consider us a worthwhile investment. Having a budget for courses and conferences, so conferences other than ANJAC's conferences. Supplies for educational programs and events, so things just like paper, laminator, very, very simple things like that. Professional fees, if you need an environmental consultant, so once again, if you need to update your ERI or NRI, or if you're hiring an outside consultant to do a site plan review, something like that. Outreach expense, so if you are going to hire, once again, someone outside of your environmental commission to your website, putting money into Facebook advertising. Facebook advertising is fortunately incredibly inexpensive, and a little money can go a very long way. So if you are having an event of some kind, Facebook advertising is a good idea. Oh, and one quick note, ANJAC has been receiving a lot of requests to do some kind of webinar on how environmental commissions can use social media and how to use it well. So we are looking into that, so keep an eye out for that as well. Printing, postage, signs, so postage is unfortunately very expensive. So that is why social media has been kind of the new go-to for outreach to residents. Sometimes you just need to mail things out. So keep in mind postage, but once again, it is very expensive. One way that you can cut down on postage expenses is if you need to promote something, talk to your governing body and see if they already mail out a newsletter, if they already mail out, you know, some other mailing that they have. Sometimes you might be able to tuck in a letter or a flyer for something. That's a way to save on postage, so the Environmental Commission doesn't have to do its own mailing. Development of ERI plans, studies, or inventories, I went over that. Software or hardware needs, so if for some reason you, as an Environmental Commission, want to take on doing GIS yourself, however, a lot of these things sometimes, once again, your town already has. So having a good relationship, and I should point out, not only with your governing body, but with your town clerk and your town attorney, or municipal clerk and municipal attorney. On my old environmental commission, my friend Siva is here. Hi, Siva. From Morris Township. I had a very good relationship with the municipal clerk and the municipal attorney. So it was very easy for us to find out what the town already had, so that we did not duplicate efforts. And other. So if you can plan a little bit of a rainy day fund, easy budgets can be as small as a few $100s, as big as a few $1,000s. Think about what is useful to you and what is affordable for the town. So we are approaching the end of our presentation. ANJAC resources. They are mostly on hold right now because I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but there is a little bit of a pandemic going on in the world. We have a lot of physical resources. We have a lot of games that we lend out for like Earth Day or festival celebrations. We have a lot of boards, presentation boards like you see here that talk about very general environmental concepts that perhaps your residents don't know about. We are not lending these out for the near future until further notice, just to keep both you and our staff safe. However, we have a lot of virtual resources. So I want to do a quick plug. We are planning to do some kind of virtual Earth Day celebration. So keep an eye out for that. Likely we will be spotlighting a few environmental commissions who are doing exciting work. I encourage all of you to also think about virtual Earth Day celebrations. And there are lots of ways to celebrate Earth Day that you do not need to gather in person to do. One thing that I have stolen once, or borrowed, or shared, I think is the term that Jen used, from a few of our fellow organizations, is a virtual cleanup. So you divide up the town, or you divide up into certain days and times. You have your residents sign up for those days and times. You have them come to a safe location where you are social distanced to pick up supplies. So things such as gloves, garbage bags, trash pickers, and then send them out and have them clean up their own area, a specific area if you're looking, and space it out so that people can be social distanced. Great way to celebrate Earth Day. Have them take pictures and send them to you. And then you can post them on your town's Facebook page, in the newsletter. A great, easy, effective way to celebrate Earth Day. A few other people are also talking about sapling giveaways. You can partner with a local nursery. Lots of different ways to virtually celebrate Earth Day. And once again, if you're stuck on some ideas, reach out to your fellow ECs or reach out to us. Webinars, webinars, webinars. Now I know that you folks are not sick of webinars because you are here on a Saturday morning. Whew, almost said Sunday. Been a long week. On a Saturday morning. ANJAC will continue our webinar series. Once again, all of our most of our webinars are also posted on our YouTube page. They will also be sent out to all registrants so that you have them in perpetuity. We also have a bunch of resource papers. So resource papers are just a few sheets of paper that go over a very specific topic. So we have one on green infrastructure. We have a bunch that, of course, I can't think of right now. Open space, the importance of having an open space fund. These are all in the midst of being updated right now. So those updated resource papers will be available on our website when they are completed, and they will be designed to be in the 21st century because some of them were looking a little dated. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So this is what the ANJAC staff looks like nowadays, except obviously I have had a haircut since mine, and I have a different mug, but this is what we look like nowadays. We are all working separately from home safely. The best way to reach us is by email. So info@anjac.org is the best way to reach us. We are not in the office very often, so phone calls are not the best way to reach us. However, please be patient with us because, like I said, we are all working from home. We're all trying to stay safe, and we are still trying to keep New Jersey, in my opinion, the best place to live. So thank you all for spending time with us. Thank you all for what you are doing. I said this in my breakout room. It just warms my heart to hear people, all of you working as if there is no pandemic, as if we are not all incredibly tired and stressed from being under quarantine. All of you are looking forward and saying, yes, we are working on our environmental justice. We are working on electric vehicle charging stations. We are planting a pollinator garden. I'm so incredibly proud of all of you, and you should feel incredibly proud of yourselves for continuing all of your work. Even amidst, I have to say it, these unprecedented times. I had to say it, I'm sorry. I hate that cliche right now. I think you're all sick of hearing it. So we have reached our Q&A portion. So I'm going to stop sharing so that I can look at all of your lovely faces. And everyone has been messaging me how we're going to handle this, and I have not been paying attention. So I'm going to unmute and let someone else talk.
I'm Randy Rothmel also from ANJAC, and there are a few questions in the chat. I think a lot of them have already been answered in the chat, but I will read a few of them here as part of this session. Doug asks, what are the rules relating to field trips for a quorum? Are they and site visits? Are they also considered public meetings?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the general rule is if you are not discussing anything having to do with Environmental Commission business, then you do not need to worry. Frankly, if you were all sitting at a bar together and you just so happen to be there, obviously this would be in the before times or afterwards. You don't all need to worry about, oh God, we're all in the bathroom at the same time. Is this a quorum? But once again, the closer you get to having a quorum, the more you need to be careful. What I would do if I were you is I would just advertise that the Environmental Commission is going out on a field trip. So that just to be on the safe side, but as long as you are not discussing Environmental Commission business, If you are simply there to educate yourselves or to listen to someone else, you're probably fine. But once again, it's always good to err on the side of caution. A great way to, if you have a question about this, is because I am not a lawyer and I do not ever intend to be, a great way is to clear this with your municipal attorney as well.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a great answer.
It came that I was specifically talking about relating to business at hand, like in order to actually see something that was being discussed in the environmental commission. You know,
So Doug, if you're doing something like a site visit for a site plan or just going to look at a park that you might want to do some work on, you absolutely should either notice that meeting like it's a meeting or have less than a quorum go at a time. So 3 of you could go once and 3 of you could go another time.
right? That's exactly what we did for the particular.
That's perfect. Absolutely. That's one reason why a lot of environmental commissions have a site plan review committee so that they can meet quickly if there's a really important development. If they only have 3, you know, under the quorum, they're allowed to meet and discuss business without having to notice the meeting. Thank you, Doug. Great question.
And Randy, if you wouldn't mind also, just for the sake of the record, reading out some of the questions that were answered, just so folks have that in the recording as well. So what, like, for example, someone asked, what does GIS stand for? I realized that I said an acronym without explaining it, which is my pet peeve. GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. That is a system that is used to do spatial, I can see a whole bunch of engineers are smirking right now on my screen. GIS is a way to do spatial analysis, create a map that is useful. GIS is not just map making. That was drilled into my head at Rutgers, but it is anything having to do with geography. It's there's a lot of software.
Yeah, and we are saving the chat too, so we will have all that information also.
Great.
So, from Rachel and it asks that their borough has never had alternatives for their EC. Are they mandated by law? And I think you did cover this, but you might want to just touch on that a bit.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
alternates?
Alternates, are they mandated by law to have alternates?
Someone can correct me, but I do not believe they are mandated, but they are allowed. No one corrected me, so I'm assuming I'm correct.
No,
Yeah.
that's correct, Alex.
Yeah, they are allowed, but they are not mandated. So once again, you can have as few as 5 members, you can have as many as 7, and as many as 2 alternates.
Somebody just asked a question. Sorry, Joanne and Chris wanted to know if an alternate is under the quorum rule. And absolutely, I would be very careful with that. Do count the alternate in your mind as a regular member when you're figuring out your quorum. Not an associate member, but an alternate has the option sometimes to vote. So you'd want to make sure you are covered. So if you have 7 plus the 2, so you have 9. So you don't want to ever meet with more than 4 of you at one time without noticing the meeting. Yes, because alternates can vote at the chair's discretion when if someone is missing. And it's usually, you know, first alternate, second alternate. So obviously they would go in that order. So if only 6 people are there, the chair can allow 1 person to vote. And that way it is an odd number. So you will achieve a majority if, God forbid, someone is split.
Yeah, and that actually answers one of the other questions they were talking about, whether alternates are allowed to vote or not. So you already answered that question. Another question was, when is the annual report due and who actually looks at the report for the?
Oh, I love this question. So the annual report, it depends on what your municipalities kind of when the reorg is. I would say most municipalities, the reorg is reorganization. That happens in January. So the annual report would be due before that. I think you would once again check with your governing body to see if they would like it by a specific date. Who reads the annual report is a great question because sometimes it can be nobody. Nobody is required to read your annual report, frankly. So a great way to make sure people do read it is brag about yourself on every possible way. So ask what I've used to do in my hometown, Berkeley Heights. I wasn't on the Environmental Commission, but I was super involved in local politics. The Environmental Commission would often make a presentation either at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, and this is at the governing body's discretion. They would make a presentation on what they have achieved during the year. And that is a great way to get people to be forced to pay attention to what you have done. Publishing your annual report on the website. So once again, at the discretion of your governing body, giving that the okay to be published on your website, publishing it on social media, holding a webinar in your town if you want, if you think people are interested about your environmental commission. There are lots of ways to force people to read your annual report because you are required to make it. No one is required to read it. You have to make people read it. And I totally, I hope you are all making people read it.
I would think that you could also put something in your bylaws as to when your report is due also. I would think you could put that in your,
Check with your governing body. And Lyle, you had something to add?
I was just going to say, you can also read it into the minutes at a town council. You could say, we want to share with you the highlights. And so that way it's on record too.
Lyle, that is a great idea because in every single council or committee meeting, there is a portion if your council or committee, once again, are not friendly, there is a portion where anyone from the public can say anything. Once again, there may be a bit of a time limit, so keep that in mind as you are reading it. But that way you will have some time to talk a little bit about your accomplishments. So you may want to paraphrase it a little bit, but yes, that is a great way. Thank you, Lyle.
And I think that actually takes care of all the questions that were in the chat. So you want to just finish up, Alex? I think we're.
I also want to maybe just take, I know it's 11 o'clock now, so if folks do not, GIS, Joanne, I think someone answered it as Geographic Information System. If someone, I do want to give folks, I do want to give a big thank you to everyone for joining. I also do want to give a little bit of time if folks did have questions, please raise your hand. There is a raise hand function on the bottom in reactions, or put in the chat that you would like to ask a question, and then we will call on you and allow you to unmute. I did just want to give folks a few more minutes because I know we were a little bit delayed in our organizing and everything. So I will be quiet for about 10 seconds and see if folks have, please raise your hand or put in the chat that you have a question. I'll hum the Jeopardy theme song while I do that. Wow, I will take your, oh, Doug has physically put his hand up, which he gets extra credit for.
I didn't see the symbol, so I just did it that way.
Go right ahead, Doug.
Okay, sort of related to my other question, and that relates to like sharing of written documents. Sunshine Law might apply to that. And we've talked about maybe having a server that, and because we end up having several iterations of documents we're working on, but I just wondered how the public should be involved with that, or how we should be cautious about that, or.
That is a great question, because especially nowadays with all this technology, it is very hard to, you definitely have to be super aware, Doug. I'm very glad you brought that up. So especially because of group chats now and emails, there are very specific guidelines. Obviously, they are not written into the law. I don't think our legislators knew about Snapchat when they made the Open Public Meetings Act. However, there are some guidelines. So for a server, I think is fine as long as there is no communication. So if you are just storing documents, that is fine. If you all start replying, and so the general guideline is the chair or the clerk can send out one email, right? They are allowed to send an email out to the entire commission. That can have attachments, that can have communication about when the meeting is. You should not reply all. That is the general rule. So if you have a question, or you have something that would like to be added, or you have something that would like to be sent out to the group, either send it to only the chair or send it only to the clerk. And the general rule is only let those two send out information to the group, because as soon as you reply all, and all 9 members of your environmental commission are in that group, you are getting even closer to violating the Open Public Meetings Act. But once again, because there's no specific guidance, It is hard to say whether you would or not. I think a court would rule that you would. But once again, I'm not I'm not a lawyer. Every time you do that, you have a chance of violating it. Same with group chats. So someone can text everyone and say, hey, just so you know, the meeting is starting. Do not reply. Reply only to the Environmental Commission chair or to the clerk. And that way, you know, you will not violate the Open Public Meetings Act. Did that answer your question, Doug?
That's helpful.
I got a lot of nods, so that's good. Thank you for asking that. I did mean to talk about that during my presentation. And because it is 11:03, and I don't know about you, but I am ready for a second cup of tea. I believe we are bringing this to a close. So I do want to allow if Liz or Sheila or anyone else from the ANJAC staff would like to say something before we close for good. I see Cheryl is touting our social media in the chat, which is great. But yes, anyone else want to say anything?
So I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending. We really enjoyed having you. It was great to see you. I'm glad this worked out virtually so well for everybody. If you missed part of this and want to see it again, the same thing on Tuesday evening at 7, you can. And if you haven't yet signed up for any of the other sessions, it's on our website and it's in the chat, the link to that place where you can find out the details of the other sessions. Really great to see you all. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you all. Take care.